Hello there, everybody. This is Ryan from RKP Creates. This is actually my first video, pretty much ever. At least where I go in and I talk about what I'm doing in my art and doing demonstrations. Just a little bit of backstory before we get started is I spent most of my life working in machine shops and fabrication, so my skill sets vary from working a cash register to welding, furniture, industrial tools, saws, building uh, luxury awnings for super rich people. And so I did that most of my life. I've always been able to draw. I was always kind of a lazy artist in that I didn't want to learn color theory or lighting, so I just stuck to pencils and portraits for a lot of time. And then I wanted to do comics for a long time as well, but I just didn't have the passion for it. I'd get started on a book and I'd burn out quick. Anyways, getting older in life, got injured at work, decided to make some changes, and decided to go back to school. Now, when I made that decision, I knew very little about digital art, or I didn't even have the tools to really do any digital art beforehand because of the cost. But we made the decision for me to go back to school, and I'm going for 3D animation because I figure if I'm going to go to school, I might as well learn something a little further than just illustration. Since I already had a pretty strong background in drawing, I figured it would benefit me more if I got a degree in something a little further removed from that. Anyway, so I've been doing that since March of last year. I go to Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design right now. So I'm a student still. I do work as a freelance artist now. So that is my regular job. And I'm also learning as much as possible. And so I'm not waiting for the education to come to me, but I'm going to seek it out. And since going to school, I have found resources such as Udemy, lynda.com, Pluralsight, and I have been learning as much as possible. And so one of those things I've been learning is 3D art, 3D modeling and texturing, soon to be rigging and animating. And what we have before us today is just a plate that I created. I made a bunch of models, I modeled this all in Maya, which is a traditional industry standard modeling program in animating. And I'm just going to use this as my base for my illustration, which is actually going to be of my interpretation of Horus from ancient Egypt. So I just went in and I modeled all this stuff out, and I just rendered it out, saved it, and this is going to be my base. So I'm going to pretty much work on top of all this. It just helps with perspective, ambient occlusion, some shadows, and different things like that. But it's going to look quite a bit different by the time we're done. Like I said, this is my first video, so yay us, right? Hopefully this can be a help to somebody who's, is trying to learn and maybe feel that some of the seasoned pros that are making videos, maybe it's too far removed from what you feel you're capable of. Maybe this will, help bridge that gap. I don't know. I can only hope so. So I'm in Photoshop, which is my go-to program. I also have Clip Studio Paint, which I love for line work. And I have Sketchbook Pro, I think it's from Autodesk. I haven't really had a chance to get into that too well yet, so I don't know much about it. And I have Krita, which I don't know much about that either yet. So, but I'm going to get started. Like I said, this is going to be Horus, or my interpretation of Horus from ancient Egypt. And so like I said, this is my first video that I've ever done. I don't really have a webcam. Probably won't. So you'll have to bear with me. And, you know, even though this is my first video, it probably won't be very pretty. I probably won't be the most eloquent speaker. But hey, it's all learning, so you gotta start somewhere. Hopefully you appreciate this channel, not because of my ability to talk cleanly or smoothly, but on my artistic skills and the things I can share with you. I have learned a lot in the last 6 months, and that's been very, very helpful. And I just want to share that with as many people as possible. And because I was kind of on an island for a long time, probably like a lot of folks are, not really knowing where to go with the art, what it means, what's acceptable, what's a standard practice, what's not. I used to think that using a light box was wrong. I used to think that looking at photos was cheating. I used to think that using photos in digital art was wrong. But as I learned, come to find out a lot of that stuff that I had an issue with, it's what makes all the best artists so good. And it's actually standard practice in a lot of studios and professional environments. So, got to be careful not to judge something just because of our own ego or some sense of pride. The industry, the art industry, is more about problem solving than it is about creating pretty pieces of art. And a lot of people don't realize that, because in an island we're all just by ourselves, and maybe we spent some time listening to some fine artists or traditional artists, and we have this expectation of what's acceptable, what's not. So don't be afraid to use whatever tools you have at your disposal is really what this is about, which is kind of what I've done here. I've just it took me 20 minutes to model that entire background at the most. So now that that's done, that just saves me so much time and frustration or working through that decision process of perspective. A lot of that's already done, and we can just get to drawing and kind of laying out what we want to achieve. So the idea is that he's just got a staff, and in my mind, the way I envision this is that this Horus is definitely still a ruler, but he's not one of the animal, not so far out there that we can't relate to him. I think a lot of that may have been some of the misunderstanding of our hieroglyphs on the what they were trying to say when they had half human, half animals. But so he'll be holding a staff, and in my mind he's going to be addressing like that audience, or people have come to hear him give a decree or a speech or something. It's whatever. I mean, if you're creating a similar piece or want to try something similar, just when you're doing it, make your own story. And it'll make the piece have a lot more energy and life in it if there's a purpose for it. So, I've worked in a variety of fashions. Sometimes I do line art like this, and then I'll go in and do the painting underneath. Sometimes I just block out in blocks of color and shapes, and But for this one, I wanted to kind of create a series of videos that we can go through and just see how this process happens for me. And hopefully, like I said, you get something from it. So my vision of ancient Egypt may be a lot different than a lot of other people's. And that's from a different. I just, I just don't like to be beholden to something because some people who have no idea what they're talking about say this is what happened 5,000 years ago, even though they weren't there. So I don't really want to be necessarily always beholden to the status quo. I like to maybe explore different ideas and possibilities that maybe the mainstream is not prepared to accept. Now you may be wondering what I am, the tools I'm using. Like I said, I have Photoshop going right now, and you can see that. At least I think you can. I'm using a XP Pen 22E Pro, which is a tablet monitor for artists. I think that for me personally, I can never use a standard just a tablet because there's no way I can look at the screen and draw with my hand below it. And I got this for like $500, so it was a pretty good price for what it is. And it's just been fantastic. Before this, which I got when I started school, I did not have a tablet with pressure sensitivity. I had a monitor, but my computer was never strong enough to do the pressure sensitivity. So a lot of this stuff is kind of new to me still. But pressure sensitivity and this tablet screen just changes everything. And if you already have had that for a while, then you know, and if you haven't, then I highly recommend you saving up your money and getting one. So I'm just exploring different ideas for the outfit. Seeing what I like. Might change it all. Who knows? And then so I want it to be kind of like a robe, but not totally exactly like a robe. Yeah, I don't like that. I'm just going to erase that. And if you find this channel and you have suggestions, I would love to hear them. Like I said, this is kind of my first thing. I'll probably get better with the whole talking like I know what I'm doing as time goes on. A lot of artists, you know, they do the artwork first and they'll record themselves afterwards because it takes so much concentration. They get kind of lost in the moment. I'm gonna try not to do that if I can avoid it. But there's no telling. So I'm including the hawk to some degree in the staff. And I have no real set idea for what the staff should look like. So we're just going to experiment, play with it. I might even change his whole outfit. Yeah, probably gonna. Now we could just go up there and get my marquee and just select all that and delete it, but my eraser is just a flick of the button, so I'm right here. I'm gonna do something just to maybe kind of make this a little more dynamic, a little more interesting, kind of make a hero out of our Horus. So I think I'm going to do like a topless version, just because, you know, it's you can get away and have a lot more fun when you're doing all the muscles. So I've been drawing people for a long time, so you might see me just kind of wing it with anatomy, or you might see me take the time and work through some of the placements of everything and kind of build out the structures. I intend for this piece to be something that we work on, and that I work on for this channel for a little while, for over the course of several videos. I don't really want to do a time lapse of this one, just because it's so new to the channel. Maybe we just get to know each other a little bit, spend some time making some awesome artwork. And who knows what can happen. And then I'm going to do plenty of other types of videos on the channel. I'm going to do 3D work. I'm going to do some modeling, some sculpting in the future. I'm just I don't want to start any sculpting on the channel because I'm still a little unsure of ZBrush. So I want to make sure that if I'm going to make a video, I can just be rocking it out for the most part, instead of kind of wasting our time trying to remember what buttons to push and where to find that tool and that brush. But we're getting there. I've gotten my user interface for ZBrush customized to where I can pretty much find the majority of the tools I'm going to need on a regular basis. So I kind of envision these characters being really fit, but also really strong and bulky, because I mean, if you want to believe that these are a group of beings that can build the pyramids at some point, then whether you believe they did or did not, then it makes sense that they would be full of, or have some muscle mass. Sorry, I sometimes forget how to talk. So we all know about the Eye of Horus. Or Eye of Ra. So I might have that be like a tattoo. I think I'm gonna make it a necklace or something. A lot of people associate the eye, all-seeing eye, with the Illuminati or Masons or some evil, nefarious group. The fact is that the symbol itself represents the third eye, something we all have, in a personal connection with whatever you believe God is. So it's been used by many cultures throughout history, still in use today. So I wouldn't worry about it. That's why I like it, actually. I think it's kind of neat. Alright, so I've got a pretty good idea of a sketch here going. Kind of what I want my character to look like. I just have these like little bands of leather wrapped around, just add some interest to the piece. Might even do a beard of some sort. Can't decide yet. Turn the opacity down the back. Actually, I'm gonna this way I can just kind of see what I'm looking at and lay in maybe some shadows or something. Who knows? Who knows? One thing's for sure, we're going to have a lot of happy accidents and have fun with it. So, like I was saying about anatomy, if you don't, most artists can't just go in and draw a human figure without like looking at something really close. And so I would recommend normally to always have some form of reference to go off of. I have been doing a lot of sculpting, and I've been drawing superheroes for a very long time. So I don't necessarily always use reference strictly, but you can't go wrong by doing it. So yeah, we're just getting some stuff done here. So yeah, going forward in this channel, what I'd like to be able to do is have videos like this where we kind of go through and you just do some artwork. Maybe you watch along, maybe you try to do the same thing, follow along at home. that's the case, let me know and I'll make sure that I can gear these videos going forward to that process. But I want to do these kind. I want to do some time lapse. I want to just kind of do videos showing the modeling process. Really, the sky's the limit. So this character is actually at least in my mind, not exactly, he's not white, but he isn't quite a black character either. Just kind of like a Middle Eastern dark feel. Maybe almost a Native American skin tone. But he would have a dark complexion just because, well, the reality is if Horus did exist and live, Egypt was probably not a desert. But that's what we think of now when we think of Egypt. So it makes sense that if I'm going to do a character associated with ancient Egypt, even though I'm taking a lot of liberties here, that at least he or she, looks like they've lived in the Egypt most of us recognize. And so once I get my character done, and I feel comfortable with where we leave him, we're then going to go in and I'm going to paint the background in its totality. And then I'll just do the character right on top. Yeah, I'm going to put some facial hair. Kind of makes sense if you think about it. When you see a lot of those ancient illustrations of kings and stuff, they all had these really long beards and so yeah, I'm gonna give him a nice beard. And some dark eyes. I kind of associate with eye makeup on men with ancient Egypt. I'm not exactly sure why. Another thing that's really helped me as an artist too is learning to not have to be a perfectionist. Letting your brush kind of make decisions for you at times. A lot of the artwork isn't good because it's perfect. It's good because of the energy it creates and the stories that it allows your brain to generate. So don't be afraid to let it out and just kind of let your hand do some walking. So one thing that I just remembered that I want to make sure is reflected in the artwork is, you look here, these pyramids here, those are going to actually end up becoming the sources of light in here. So there it's going to be kind of a dark blue, generally background with kind of this orange casting from these lights. And this is, a little thing that kind of design based off the pyramid designs, just kind of rolling with that. But they're going to give off light on the capstones. And so the light source is going to come from slightly behind and come forward. So when I'm doing shadows and stuff, I want to make sure that the highlights are just catching this side. A lot of times when you have a really bright light in there, the rest, right where that light, the highlights meet the shadows, it appears to be really dark there. And I don't know if it's supposed to, if it's actually any darker, if it's just the contrast. But that's something that our mind sees. So when we're going to create a painting, we are not painting reality. We're painting things that will remind or tell our mind what picture to create. That's sounds really confusing the way I just said that. But basically, I'm not drawing a nose here. I'm using shapes and form to give the illusion of a nose. So that when you're looking at this, the body, the mind, it sees a nose because those shapes in their placement and context with everything else call to mind a nose. So I'm using the mind's built-in expectation to not worry so much about getting everything just right, because that's not how the mind sees things. Sorry, I really will get the hang of talking and drawing at the same time, paying attention to what I'm saying. Might take me a video or two, so bear with me. We're just I don't know how long I'm gonna make this, but for these videos of this painting, I kind of want it just to be a series where we just kind of go through and we create this thing. If you want to follow along, I think it's amazing. I would recommend doing your own character. That's a big thing. Anybody can follow a tutorial, and that's where I've learned a lot of things. And I follow them while I'm learning ZBrush. But I make sure that the things I'm creating are totally separate and unique to me. So, you want to be able to illustrate, if you're looking for a job in the industry, that you can create this stuff on your own. Rather than just watch a tutorial. So, yes, follow along. Maybe you learn something about how I'm doing these brush strokes. If you have questions, I will do my best to answer questions. I mean, I don't have any followers yet, so shouldn't be a problem. And this is likely to change a lot as we work through it, although I am not one of those artists who just constantly change as they go and move things around, and I'm generally pretty set on what I want to create when I start a project. I don't know if that's a good thing. I'm still kind of new to all this. But that's just kind of the way I work. Just kind of go in there, have something in my mind, and I want to create that. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm just being mindful of that shadow and the highlight from the pyramid here. In my mind, as the arm extends out further, some of those highlights will wrap around this bottom side a little bit. So while it's not necessary that you render out something to this extreme just before you paint over it, I'm doing it just to have a really strong base down, and so that you guys can see this way of working. There's nothing wrong with doing it this way. Some artists just, they don't even see the way that the rest of us see. So they just see in shapes, and they go in there with nothing but blobs of color, and then they start painting within those, and next thing you know, it's like, whoa, where did that come from? And you have no idea how they did it. So I'm going to try not to have that kind of a thing going on here. So clearly my Horus is not a pencil pusher, but quite an imposing figure. And that's, you know, when you think about those kind of characters that exist and have survived throughout so much time in history, you know, there must have been something genuinely about these characters that A, they were either really gods, or B, caused generations of people for years to come to worship them as though they were gods. And I'm not talking necessarily about the pharaohs. We all know that, you know, the pharaohs, by that point, everyone believed in gods, and they had their routine and traditions in place. I'm talking about the people that originated it. I'm talking like Jesus, you know, or Krishna, Horus, Osiris. You know, what is it that happened so long ago that made these people venerate these beings as gods? I mean, what was it? What big event happened? So if you think of it like that, then, you know, we can imagine that if there were beings that genuinely informed these deities or archetypes, that they were pretty amazing. So if we're going to draw them, let's not be afraid to make them pretty amazing. Yeah, so trying to do this pretty fast, not speed lapse. I don't want to do a time-lapse video on this, but I'm a pretty fast artist. You know, and I'm not sure why. You know, I guess that's just one of those innate skills. So I'm just really trying to get this down so we're not having an hour-long video and you guys are hating me already. But I want to have this pencil part, at least of Horus, kind of laid in there. Who knows, we might use it and just paint right on top. We might use it as a layer, to clean it up and add some extra definition to the shadows and the highlights. We have several different options available to us. And as far as composition goes, you can see here I have him just to the right of center. For those of you who don't know, this is a standard practice called the rule of thirds when it comes to composition in photography and art in general. And if you divide this up into thirds, going both directions, you will see that it creates four spots, four intersections, and those are the places where you want to focus or center your main object or character. I don't know why it works like that, but they just seem to create better compositions doing it that way. So yeah, this I kind of feel like this arm over here is going to be pretty dark. You see here? So I'm working on his chest behind the necklace, and this shading kind of looks like wings to me just by chance. And I think I'm gonna kind of roll with that. And the hawk or the falcon, which is very closely associated with Horus, kind of makes sense that maybe he's got hawk wings tattooed on his chest. So yeah, we're gonna play with that, maybe see what we get. Might look horrible, might look wonderful. Don't know till you try. So if you find this and you're wanting to know some other great resources, there's several as far as digital art and how it's used in the industry and how you can maybe pick up the skills and talents that you need to follow a career into those areas. If you like concept work, Design Cinema on YouTube here is pretty amazing. It's Feng Su, I think is his name. He's got a school in Singapore, I believe, and he was one of the pioneers of the concept art line of work. And his channel's pretty fantastic. Although he is one of those people, you'll watch him work and you'll be like, how in the world does someone do that? And I mean, that's kind of what I say when I look at his stuff, because when I try to do it, it doesn't look anywhere near as good. But yeah, that's just how it goes. It's pretty amazing to watch him work. But anyways, he's got I have 100 videos on that channel up, and you can get all kinds of info from his videos about what's respected of a concept artist, and what kind of things you would need to focus on if you wanted to make a career out of it. Another channel is, I really like Aaron Blaze's creatureartteacher.com. He's got a pretty good thing going on there. He does a lot of live demos, and His stuff's really geared more towards animation. He worked with Disney for a long time, or and just digital painting, maybe character design more than straight up concept work. You know, concept art isn't really just like what I'm doing here. Just because I have this beautiful drawing and it's all painted out doesn't make it concept art. It could serve as a piece of concept art or promotional material. But concept art is really more about design, product design, and figuring out how things work in whatever reality or environment you're trying to create. So it's really more about problem solving at that point than it is art or creating beautiful paintings. However, we do want to be able to do both. So why not create a beautiful painting that is a piece of concept art? Alright, so we're getting pretty much down to the wire on this guy. Which means we'll be able to move on. Alright. Only thing I'm gonna do is now I want to just fix this staff. Not liking it. Alright, I'm just gonna use the little tool, click one end, hold shift, go to the other end, hold shift, and you can get a straight line. So this is the one area where it would probably serve us to have some more concepts design. Sorry, I'm getting lost in my artwork again, really thinking about what I'm doing here. Get stuff like that, people, I got a pretty good idea, but this is something that is could stand to have several revisions under normal situation. But this isn't horrible. I could probably do something with this. We're just making happy accidents now, so it's whatever happens. We're just gonna accept it and see what we can make happen. Alright. Well, I don't know about you, but this is starting to look pretty good. If you guys have any questions, if you happen to find this, then just let me know. I'm no problem answering your questions about how I do things or why I do them. And no telling how many of those things that I do are not the best practices. But they work for me, so, and who knows, they might work for you too. So now I'm just going to come in here and kind of set up some highlights. This is not really necessary. I just want to go ahead and have it done so we can move on. And when I make my next video, we're just going to be moving on to getting the background where we want it to be. And I have found that the pieces that have the greatest amount of contrast between the highlights and those dark colors usually have the most energy and most excitement in them. So I have no problem, and I'm actually trying to push some of these highlights a little bit. Just give ourselves an idea what it might look like when we go in there and put some color on it. Yeah, there we go. We're about there now. A little bit. Yeah, I'm really liking how this is starting to look. So, you know, this is a character that, you know, looks like they could exist throughout several different periods of history. And I feel like that's a good thing. So yeah, there we have it. Let's just turn background down a little bit for now. Yeah, there we have it. Well, folks, I think I'm about ready to wrap this video up. And like I said, I don't want to keep you here too long in these first few videos where I can barely talk and not very interesting. Just getting our feet wet here. So I hope you stayed with me. I'd love to be able to share my journey as I grow as an artist, which you know, that's what it's all about. You know, I am new to this. I would love to work on a Marvel movie or two, and then maybe do my own company one day. But we got to get there, and that takes some time, hard work, practice, lots of time, lots of hard work, lots of practice. Probably can't say that enough, so might hear that a lot. There you go. You kind of see the illusion of a tattoo there. Alright, I'm just going to clean the edges up, and we're going to call this good. And then we can move on to the next part. And I'm going to try and do these once a week, maybe 2 a week if possible. I'm not sure how my schedule will work out. But that's going to be the goal. Alright, I'm pretty happy with this here. So we're going to call it. Yeah, really thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this and to listen to me ramble and talk some silly stuff. If this is the kind of thing you enjoy, please subscribe and hit the like, maybe even share it with a friend. Like I said, I hope it grows and can only get better from here. And hopefully we learn something, maybe from each other. Feel free to leave your comments, and hopefully we all grow as artists. So until the next time, stay blessed and keep drawing.